Hey folks, thanks for tuning back in for video number 2 on my YouTube channel. I heard from some friends via Facebook that the sound was really low on the first video that I did. I thought about pulling it down, but I thought, no, I'll just leave it up. And it was a typical, or not typical, but I guess a really serious audio guy fail that I did there, where I had been recording the guitar part for a song earlier in the day, acoustic guitar, and the microphone, I think you can see it in the video, that was there is beautiful for acoustic guitar, and I thought I'd try it for voice and see what happens. But what I had done inadvertently was left the minus 10 dB pad on, and if you don't know what that means that the microphone was recording way lower than it should be. Because I guess I was beating on the guitar quite a bit, so I thought I'd put the pad on there and save my technology here a little bit of abuse. So put the pad on the microphone, recorded the part, went down, made supper, had supper, came back up, started recording the video, and it was way too quiet. So instead of deleting it and just making this seem like it's my first video, I'll just say that it's my second. Watch the first one, and maybe I can look back at it in a while and laugh. So what I'm doing here was I wanted to describe a little bit clearer, or maybe in more succinct terms, why I'm doing what I'm doing here. I'm not the sociable type. I mean, I like people, but socializing doesn't really occur to me to do. No offense. I just like to be at home. So I'm reaching out via YouTube, having this channel, and trying to promote it as well through TikTok, of all things, and Facebook, as a way of trying to break out of the shell that I have always been in, and try some self-promotion, because it's really difficult for a lot of artists to self-promote. It's not that we can't promote somebody else. We certainly have the vocabulary to do so, but sometimes doing it for yourself doesn't quite have the appeal. I don't know. I have a hard time talking about myself. So I'm releasing a CD that was written almost entirely save for 2 songs, but completely from scratch recorded during this 2-month isolation that we've all had, the COVID thing. 2 of the songs on the CD are older, one's from 2015, one's from 2016, and they're a really big departure for me, because that was around the time when I started to discover writing lyrics. I used to have, I suppose it's an arrogance that I inherited from people I had been associating with, about the fact that you shouldn't need lyrics for a song. You should be able to tell your story through sound, and if people don't get it, well then, too bad. It can be pretty background music. You can play quietly in the background while you have dinner. So around that time I started writing lyrics, and it was a revelation and a revolution for me, because I knew that I liked to write. I wrote all the time, but I never thought of putting them to music, and that's what I started doing. There was a lot of things going on that I was writing about, and some of which will never be released as music. But it's like it opened up something in me. It was like a door went, opened like that, or a trigger or something like that, and the lyrics started flowing. And often a lot of them ended up like kind of country themed, and there was a bunch of songs I've written and sent off to various producers around wherever the world, with marginally good feedback on, and some very encouraging feedback on, but I don't know. So this CD is a piece of my heart. It's a piece of my head. transduced through hours of, I don't want to call it toiling, but work. I mean, it is work. There's a part of music that is absolute bliss and joy, but when it comes to recording it, part of it is work. Especially when you're the talent and the technician and the producer all at the same time. You're trying to balance the joy of the creative process with being the guy sitting here typing at keys and turning knobs and tuning and stuff, and they don't always jive. It takes a lot of work. It's like not only dividing your brain into, the right and left, but all the sort of subdivisions within there to do it. And I've been blessed, I guess you could say, even though a lot of people wouldn't look at this sort of isolation quarantine thing as being blessed, with the time that I've had at home where I can come up to my studio in the late afternoon and after supper and work. And I've been blessed with, the understanding from people at home that I have to do this, and, I ask if they need me to do anything before I go. I let them know what I'm doing. My phone is right here. If they need anything, they can text me, and I'm right there. But I am totally blessed to have been able to do this. That is my silver lining to the spring of 2020. Not everybody has such a silver lining. I'm not insensitive to that. But what this isolation has allowed me to do is take this time to really focus on music for a change. It's not that music has been a hobby for me. It's all I've ever done as a grown-up. Whether it's teaching private lessons or DJing events, weddings, whatever, field recordings for people, not recording in a field, but mobile recording is what I mean. I've recorded quite a few really amazing people and helped them release their CD or albums, whatever you want to call it. A lot of my students, but after my first CD in 2006, where I invested all this money into buying the equipment, and at that time, having digital audio recording equipment in your home was like, what? I can do that? It was fairly new. It wasn't exactly affordable at the point. So what I did was I got all this equipment, I paid it off over time, and in order to pay it off, I farmed myself out as a mobile recording engineer. I had the absolute pleasure of working with some amazing people that you have heard of, and amazing people that you probably haven't heard of. But all the while, I was working towards getting this equipment paid off so I could have the time to record my own stuff. And I did. I released it 2006, my first CD, Night Vision. You can find it on cdbaby.com. And you can get it for free, all the other places that people get their free music from these days. But now it's like, I've transitioned finally over to the world of, computer-based recording, which for me as a guitar guy, I'm not a computer guy. I had a really hard time doing it. I place very little faith in computers a lot of the time, having dealt with kids wrecking them playing video games and stuff. But I have a very good relationship with a few computers in my life right now. My workhorse over here is it's an awesome Lenovo computer, which this whole album and a lot of other things have been recorded on. And I have a computer at work, and I have my one at downstairs, my laptop, which I've also recorded people on. And so in this time, I've been able to finally take all of these ideas that I've had for years and years and put them into listenable form. I guess that's a good way of putting it, a listenable form. Some of them are very out of character for me. I suppose if you know anything about any other music that I've written and recorded before, a lot of what I've done before is very meditative, sort of neoclassical, jazzy kind of stuff, and that's still where my heart strength lies. But there's some really actually pretty rockin' tunes on this CD or album. I keep calling it a CD. This album coming out. I don't know if I'm going to release hard copy. I may or I may not. It's scarcely worth the effort or the investment to put out hard copy CDs anymore. But I'm thinking about it. So in the coming weeks, what I'm going to do is release one song every week. Perhaps there are 10 in total, with 2 little incidental tracks in there that aren't really tracks. They're fillers. And I'm going to release those over a couple of weeks, and then eventually in that time you're going to find them on all of your favorite free music sites that you like to go to. And you can have it for free. I don't want to sound like the bitter old guy, but I'm kind of past the point of making an effort to make money at music. It's not going to happen. The blessing and the curse of technology these days is it's allowed, a guy like me in small town central Ontario to sit up in his attic, from 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. Recording music to release to the world, and within a matter of minutes of uploading it, people all over the world can be listening to it, which is great. But you don't make money off it. I mean, if you were a chef cooking in a restaurant and you were cooking for people all over the world, anybody that wanted your food could come and eat it for free. After a while, you'd get a little bit bitter, and you'd be a little less likely to do it. But for me, and I know with other creatives as well, you can't turn off the drive to create. You create because you have to. There's a part of you that feels incomplete if you don't create. And the eventual goal with music is to, we've become accustomed to this thing of expecting new music from our favorite bands and artists. So that's what I'm doing. I don't think I'm anybody's favorite artist, but what I'm doing is I'm recording this to release, because it means a whole lot to me to take a piece of my heart and a piece of my head and put it into this listenable form and give it to you. So I also with this, this page, Resound, I'm going to deal with everything to do with sound, whether it's my music or questions people may have about music theory, composition, songwriting. I'm not really one you want to look at, so as far as, presentation and stuff, I don't think I'd be an authority on that. Lyric writing, production, little technology bits that musicians gather around them, which is another point that I'm going to be getting to soon. So that's going to be the basis of this page. It's not just going to be a self-indulgent thing for me. It's going to be discussing all kinds of things about music and sound, things that I find intriguing, things that I find cool. When you spend your life listening as opposed to hearing, you notice different things about the world. Just as a chef would notice different things about a dish that somebody who's not a cook or a chef would notice. There's things that a painter would notice when they look at a work of art that a non-visual artist wouldn't notice. Maybe they could guess the type of the brush that was used, or the blending of certain colors that were used, that I might look at and go, oh, cool. And they would go, oh, no, wait, that's this brush, and the blend of these 3 paints and these colors and these tones, and the finish on it. That's the way my brain thinks about sound. The way that a chef would think about food, the way that a painter would think about creating their works, the way a bird thinks about making its nest. we can look at the bird's nest and go, cool, a bird's nest. But the bird would go, no, wait, man. I got this piece of grass from over here, and I had to go like 5K down the road to get this mud that's perfect, So it's like the difference between the creator and the consumer. Neither one is more important. They just approach the very same thing and perceive the very same thing very different ways, and that's the beauty of it. So that's what I wanted to make this page be about. Regarding sound, in other words, whether it's music or birds or the waterfall we have in the pond outside, whatever, sound. So on that topic, I'm borrowing an idea from a Facebook friend who started doing a series called My Favorite Guitar. And Mike, he has a lot of guitars. He is a stunning player. This guy blows my mind. I've heard guys play like him before, but I've never met one in person. He's a powerhouse, this Mike. I don't want to say shredder. I don't want to say metalhead because those are so limiting. But he can play with a fluidity and lyricism at such a breakneck speed that I'm just kind of like, I've tried to work towards that kind of thing, but it doesn't often work out very well for me. But anyway, so borrowing Mike's idea of my favorite guitar, you can see behind me there's a few guitars. These are a couple, but I'd like to introduce you to two special ones in this episode. One is my main teaching guitar, and one is my main performance guitar. So I'm going to do that, turn around, and pick up this little gem. This is a Samick. It was a fairly inexpensive acquisition. Cedar top. I have no idea what that is, but I know that it's wood. There's my Bear Paw logo that was found and modified from an online image-free source. This is my main teaching guitar, which is normally not at home, but in my teaching studio. This is an absolute joy to play. There is no effort, no stress involved in playing this guitar at all. I've used this for gigging in the past, and I've used it for recording. You'll hear it on this coming CD. Inside of the guitar are two different pickups. There is a Fishman Rare Earth underneath here, and round about here there is an LR Baggs Active I-Beam. The Active I-Beam is stunning. It's basically like 6 little condenser microphones all condensed into one little thing that's a bit the size of your index finger. And it picks up not only the sound of the strings, but the body resonance as well. So it's very much unlike a normal quacky, tinny guitar pickup that you would hear. I put anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a day on this while I'm teaching, and because it's one of my comfort zone guitars, I wanted to put it on this album as well. So, next, the pièce de la résistance, as it is to me. This is my Godin with the Bear Paw logo again. A Godin ACSA. There you go, Multiac with Robert Godin's not actual autograph. I never met him, but it's just part of the branding of the guitar. This beauty, I can honestly say, and I've said it to many people before, I don't know how I got along in my musical life ever before this guitar. It's perfectly balanced. The neck is nice and slim, super flat. I have D'Addario Titanium Pro Arte extra hard tension strings on it, which are gorgeous. They are so worth $25. But the best thing about this guitar, as with some of my other guitars, is the two outputs that you see there. Regular 1/4 inch for the piezo pickups under here, but then the GK or synthesizer access, which basically allows me to plug into my Roland GR55. Google it if you don't know what it is, which is basically all of the sound reproduction engines of a regular keyboard synthesizer put into a device that a guitar player can access. So, often the perception is that, keyboards can play any sound. They can make a, keyboard sound like a saxophone. Well, so can this little beauty. On this album coming up, you'll hear saxophones, trumpets, choirs, some bells, some very ethereal tones coming from there that are all from this guitar. It's become my main gigging guitar. If I don't need to remove it from the house, it stays in the house, very safe. And I love it. And from the moment I first laid eyes on one years and years and years ago, I knew I had to have one. And I think I got this one in 2011, 2012. Easily the most fantastic instrument I've ever had my hands on. I haven't a single complaint about it. So the gear component of this episode of Resound is my favorite guitar, which is this guy here. This is just a beauty. There's nothing wrong with this guitar at all. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm getting kind of long here, and if you've stuck with me for this long, I thank you very much. So in the coming weeks, I'm going to be releasing these songs, like I said, one at a time. Eventually, you'll be able to get them on your favorite free downloading or streaming software. All of the songs, save for two, written and recorded in this isolation. And I'll mention the name of the CD. That you can't find any of it out there yet. It's not been released, but it's called Isolation Dreams. It's like a very large part of me in there. You'll hear some imperfections. You'll hear some breaths from the microphone when I've recorded the guitar acoustically, but that's okay to me. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm not perfect. So there are some breaths in there, and I'm okay with that. There are a few elements of maybe intonation or technique, I think, in some of the guitar solos where they're like a little microtone out. That for me, I'm not making an excuse, but for me what that means is that a human played it. I didn't go back and fuss over these little micro details to the point where I was running the risk of sucking the fun out of creating. Because when you're the talent and the engineer and the producer all at once, you'll drive yourself insane if you try and do that stuff. So yeah, perhaps I'm going to go as early as next week to release to you track number 1, and I'll have a little blurb about it. Me, who's not a particularly wordy kind of guy, for me to talk for 24 minutes straight now is remarkable. So I'm going to keep it a very short description of what this song is about, how it was recorded, and what it is, and stuff. But you're going to get some instrumentals, some hard-hitting rock stuff, which is very out of character for me. Some classically sounding things, some jazzy sounding things, some trip-hop stuff. I'm not trying to go for any theme on the album, like this is my album about this. No, this is an album of songs released in one of the most trying times I think that any of us have had in our lives. And from what I've seen from social media, on the news, and just in general being sensitive enough to pick up on what people are thinking, this collection of songs is a bringing together of all of those things. And there's angry songs. There's very angry songs. I'm not screaming angry, but you can tell. There's songs that will make you want to weep. There's songs that make you want to like get out and try and lift 200 pounds over your head because you feel all of a sudden that you can. And there's songs that are just fun. They make you want to dance. There's heartwarming things. There's heartbreaking things. All in 10 songs. Yeah. So I'm going to press the big red button and disconnect now that I've given you enough blurb about what to expect. And perhaps next week I will introduce you to track 1 if the mastering goes according to plan. And if it doesn't, I'll have a good reason or excuse for you next week when I do video number 3. Thank you for watching if you've made it this far. I really, really appreciate it. And if you feel so inclined, maybe click like. If you want to subscribe, that's awesome. Then you can hear these new tunes ASAP when I bring them out to you next week. Thank you.